think this is something that not a lot of people talk about is making the bar so that everybody can reach it, showcase them and make them feel like they're on top of the world, because when you do that, the level 2 improvements start coming and your level of service and quality of work goes up, and the culture kind of speaks for itself. The goal of improvement time isn't really efficiency, it's training time, it's growing and developing people. So once you start to see the waste, there's a frustration element that people talk about, and you can see waste everywhere, and the improvement should really flow just like production. To do that, you do need to have it's not about age, it's about humility and attitude first. So if they have that, you can really teach them anything.
Welcome everyone to the NZ 2-Second Lean Learning Club. Again, step 8 of Ryan's book, Lean Made Simple. And we're joined with JB Dobbin. He started working with Ryan at Seating Matters, so he's got a wealth of knowledge, and we're very fortunate to have you on the Learning Club today. So JB, I'll take it over to you. Just want to tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Thank you. Just a quick presentation just to talk about my background, my journey in Lean through Seating Matters and how I'm implemented in my new company. So I grew up on a farm, and it was far from lean. This was actually a functional tractor on our farm, so we didn't know 3 years back then and take ownership of your things. So yeah, growing up was difficult. I always knew that there was a better way, but didn't have any way of implementing it. A lot of hard work. We built stone walls, and even though diggers and excavators were capable of doing a lot of the heavy lifting, we done this by hand. We didn't know there was a better way. Didn't know lean existed back then. So yeah, it always bugged me that we did things the hard way, and went through the typical route of university, learned lean manufacturing in a classroom. It went straight over my head. I didn't think it would be something that would ever pique my interest. I'm pretty sure I might have failed that module just because of how it was implemented and how it was presented to me. It didn't stick. So luckily, I was able to go to America and study a little bit more. Learned a lot about standards, kata, routine. But my real education started when I joined Seek Matters in 2013. An absolute roller coaster of learning from day one. I had started there pre-lean, absolute chaos, and I'm sure you've heard Ryan talk about it. It was chaos to me, but I can imagine what it actually felt like for him. I know now, running a business, having all these plates spinning and not knowing what to do with them. You guys have been in that position as well. It is so difficult to run a business without lean. It's a must for any business owner, I believe. So yeah, that journey, my real education started, and real practical education started. Probably the first time I read a book from cover to cover was Two Seg Lean, and to share a story that kind of got me hooked on lean. I used to open and shut the gate every morning at the factory, and it was dragging along the ground, and I was getting frustrated, and I was kicking and pushing at it. And Ryan noticed my struggle one day, and he says, "JB, wait there." He sprinted into the factory, got a jigsaw and cut about 10 mil off the bottom of this gate, and it just closed nice and easy. And I was like, there is a better way. You can stop and fix, you can sharpen the sword, you can always find a better way if you're engaged and open to doing so. This was me. I was hooked from there then on. Everything I'd done was identifying struggle and trying to make improvements towards that. And again, going to Japan, first study mission, I think it was maybe 2014, 15, and getting on the bus with Paul Akers and seeing the Toyota production system in real life and the Japanese culture. Just it was myself and Diggy always said it was a brain transplant to see that actually happening in real life and know that there's just a better way. And we are so sloppy in everything we do, and we can get so much more out of our life if we engage our brains, and lean is the way to do that. So first study mission to Japan, I have a full book of notes, and I still go back and consult those notes today because the learnings are endless, and I have a full 5 GB of data of videos where I just go back and watch them whenever I have an issue in the factory flow, or I always use that as a bank of knowledge. A few years later, I was fortunate enough to go back to Japan, and I've seen it from a different light, seen it from a point of view of us have implemented a lot of these things and then taking it to the next level. And another amazing trip that I've been fortunate enough to go on was in the stone products. They are a huge company in Idaho. Everything they do is based off TPS. You know, the respect for people there was phenomenal, and I just really got a lot out of it, and was able to bring principles back there that transform Seaton Matters business. We really delved into one piece part flow after that and changed the whole production lineup. So that was a phenomenal experience. And as a product designer and leading a design team, we took these design principles or lean design principles, put it into work in our products. A chair like this usually takes 2, 3 years of development. We were able to design, develop, and bring it to market within 12 months, and we're even able to get an award for it. You know, just based on lean design principles, cutting out all the waste, being able to do things in house. Ryan was had to get involved with us and making decisions, which was huge for speed and quality. So after all that roller coaster and an absolute amazing experience, I decided to start my own company called demanu, and very much in connection with Seek Matters today, helping them in a few things, and they help me as well, which is good. This was my little lean office, so just myself, 3D printer, computer. That's how I started. After a few months, I really knew that to provide the services that I wanted, we wanted to design and manufacture. That's our ethos, so we can develop products quite quickly. And got this factory that today started our own little lean team. I was fortunate enough to hire my father, the same guy who had worked with when I was younger, doing it all the hard way. Now I'm showing him how to do it a little bit easier, and he's really adopting. It's fantastic to see the change in him and how he's been able to take that. He still does a bit of farming, and I'm hoping that he'll try and do things a little bit easier now. So now I have a team of 5, and went full circle, able to take them back to St. Matters on a Lean Made Simple tour. So that was a really great moment. And I was talking to Evan before about how lucky we are here in Ireland to have kind of examples of companies to take their feet down there to show them that we're not talking nonsense. You know, there is a better way, and your first day will be the hardest, and every day after that will be better through continuous improvement is fantastic. So yeah, I touched on before. Whenever you're improving, you want improvements to flow too. Improvements should really flow just like production. To do that, you do need to have everything set up in advance of making an improvement. So if you're making a label, you know, you want the label maker there, you want the batteries there recharged in case that breaks down, Kanban for the labels and things like that there. So before actually making an improvement, it's an environment where that improvement should flow. And then it touches on James Clear's book, Lower the Activation Energy. So we talk about motivation to make an improvement and how to make an improvement. Sometimes it's difficult just to get that oomph for your people to make that. But if you have it and improvement so easy, the activation energy is minimal to make an improvement, to make a label to 3S. That's important. So lowering the activation energy to get started in improvement is good. So whenever you finish up the morning meeting, you go, right, we're straight in, we can get going. And very simple, like having all those that you need ready, labeled for when you need it. Something we done recently, we got a toolbox that had everything that we would possibly need to make an improvement. Before we were running around trying to find stuff, we didn't have the right bits. We had a 1/4 inch drive and not a 3/4 inch drive for doing things. And there's a little bit of investment needed up front to make sure improvements flow. And then I thought I'd touch on the improvement level. So it all depends on what type of improvements you're wanting to do. The level 1 improvements, like, they should be so easy to do. You shouldn't be running around with scissors or double-sided sticky tape or anything. They should be so easy to do. The level 2 improvements, you know, they're a little bit harder, they're a bit more planning involved. And level 3, obviously, the bigger improvements that are harder and need a lot more planning. But the level 1 improvements should be able to do 10, 20 of those a day if you wanted to. I think this is something that not a lot of people talk about, is making the bar so that everybody can reach it. So even at Seeding Matters, you know, we just ask for one improvement a week. We even brought it down to one improvement every 2 weeks, because the goal of improvement time isn't really efficiency. It's training time. It's growing and developing people. So you want them to get a sense of satisfaction that I've won here, and a positive upward streak here. When we started record improvements. You don't want everybody on the spreadsheet to be, you're not looking for, oh, that person's red. You want that person to be green. So, we lowered the barrier so that everybody can make level one improvement easily. And then the culture starts building from that. But I think when you start improving time, you're looking for efficiency, but it's not really the goal. The goal is grow and develop people. It's not efficiency. That comes as a byproduct. And the level one improvements inspire a level two improvement every now and again, making that so low that everybody can reach it and you feel that sense of satisfaction when everybody's green at the end of week one or week two. Lastly, just improvement time it's like a training session. That coach one-on-one, side by side with the student. If I just went out on improvement time by myself and let them do their own thing, it probably wouldn't have as much impact. So I would do my improvements outside of improvement time because I'm always thinking that way. And then when improvement time comes, I'm side by side with them, making sure they're getting the value, getting the learning out of the improvement. Like when we're putting wheels on our bins, why are we putting wheels on our bins? What's the principle here? The principle is flexibility. Whenever you need to move that, it's easy. Whenever you get two things in your hands, you can move that, it'll be easy. Think of it as a training session, not as we're going to be X amount more efficient after this improvement time. So if you're ever struggling about how things should be done, just go back to the 3S. You can't teach 3S enough because you just find so many improvements from 3S. And, if you're struggling about a principle to apply or something to teach, just go back to 3S. So if your team aren't 3S'ing and, not keeping the standards up, then, the culture's gone. And if they're not coming up with improvements, they're not 3S'ing, not engaged. So yeah, that's just some of the little nuggets that I use and principles that I use in my new company.
So I guess the conversation today is about making improvement easy. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you saw the improvement area to make level one improvements really easy? How did that evolve? Where did it start from?
Yeah, so the improvement area is key. Whenever you want to make an improvement, the process of making an improvement has to be simple too. So we would have always had an area where there's the right tools, well labeled in its place, so that whenever you're going to make that improvement, it's there. The label maker, the tube in for the laminating pouches, all those things were there and ready to go. In the early days, we would have actually done a lot of improvements on a Saturday when production was down. Kind of give you a little bit of freedom to stop and think and look at everything without the hustle and bustle of production environment. So taking that time out when it was a little bit less chaotic was important.
Did everybody have access to that improvement area, or was it basically only a key few people?
Yeah, it was right beside the shop floor. You had a little sign in, sign out of tools. Everybody had an opportunity. We started improvement time as soon as we got back from Japan the next week. It was a little bit chaotic, but it was very, very worthwhile. And
Yeah.
it was a natural part of the journey.
When it comes to improvement manager, in Ryan's book, he says improvement manager is a crucial role. The improvement manager should act as a coach, working with the person who suggested the improvement and elevating the individual who came up with the idea in the first place. In your experience, do you have any specific examples of how this coaching role plays effectively in practice?
Yes, I suppose looking at it from my own coaching role when I was there. So I was in design, but design was very heavily involved in improvements. A lot of companies design, they just work on product development and things like that there, but we were really focused on improvement as well. At one stage, we were right beside the shop floor. So we were hearing the struggles of people and couldn't get hold in. So they were hammering things. And for us, we had an improvement manager in Declan who fostered the improvement ideas. So we would have kind of Paretoed those, looked at the very high ones that are bringing in a lot of value, worked alongside them. So it's very much a coach side by side rather than, okay, I'll go and do that for you type thing, and involving them in the process. A lot of the times it was Declan was just organising, making sure it was followed through. Because when you're in production, and trying to get stuff done, unless it was a stop the line improvement where this is affecting quality, let's stop everything and do it. But sometimes it was just improvements that, no, that's going to save us time and money down the line. Let's do that. And okay, this is our plan to get it in place. So having everything available in house was very lucky. Most engineering companies, they're clued in. They're very lucky because they can get everything in house mostly. And we were lucky that we could have an idea one day and get it implemented the next day at a high level.
So your role in design, somebody could say, hey, I need something to hold this tool up. Can you design something? And then you would be able to punch something out, and then that would go to production to make it essentially, right?
But if it's something small, just kind of fill in with production. But all the time, the people on the line had improvements about the design as well. So we would have fostered their ideas because it kind of took a lot of onus off our shoulders that we didn't have to come up with all the ideas. When we had an engaged work staff, the ideas came to us, which is good. And then we were just implementing them.
Awesome, JB. Yeah, no, thanks for that. I think the one thing for me is the training session, thinking of 3S and improvement time as a one-on-one, and not just showing the improvement, but the thinking behind the improvement. What is the purpose? Like you say, it's not just efficiency, but it's making our lives easier and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll go on to questions now. Start with James. James, you there? You got a question for JB?
Hey, JB, thanks for your time. My question is about what are some of the resources that you recommend for teams that want to make improvements easy? So you showed off your toolbox and you showed off like the general tools that you use. What do your teams recommend to start off with at a minimum? And what's something that you've really undervalued but turns out to be quite a surprise in making improvements easy?
Yeah, it's a good question. The very best thing you get is a laminator, little A6 cards, laminating pouches, double-sided sticky tape, because you'd be surprised how labeling improvements, visual improvements make things easier. You go into a lot of companies these days and absolutely nothing's labeled. So just having that facility where you can take a picture of something, put it up on the wall, and have a nice bright color around it, quite important really, for that visual aspect. So probably the label system that we have is just taken from seat matters that they still use today.
Okay, thank you. And is there anything that you've seen teams think was necessary but actually isn't?
I'm kind of the thinking that kind of keep processes as minimal as possible. We have Kanban here and used to have an Excel spreadsheet where we recorded all our Kanbans. You just have to go in and check that, keep that up to date. But really, just the Kanban itself takes care of itself, and that was an additional process that wasn't needed.
Thanks, James. All right, next we'll go to Phil.
Yeah, how you doing, JB? Thanks for joining us. So with your improvements, you're saying you're doing your general improvements outside of improvement time. So we're a similar team to what you are. And sometimes I feel like if I'm not doing the improvements with them and I'm trying to find out where I fit in with coaching the team and doing the improvements sort of fits in. And that's sort of my struggle.
Yeah, I used to, we're going to improve this, we're going to improve this. People had ideas and I just kind of let them go and run with it. And sometimes it was worked out okay and sometimes it didn't work out so well. Sometimes it's good to learn by themselves, but I'm very much of if you can be beside them, coach them towards the right way, lean on your experience that you've done in the past. That's a lot better. So make sure you're with the guys and then just allocate half an hour out of your day or an hour out of your week another time to make sure you have that minimum barrier improvement done. And not as a leader, you don't want to be trying to show up your people and say, right, I've done 50 improvements. If it's the barrier is one improvement a week, you could do 10 improvements but not shout about them. Try and do like as many improvements as I can just to make sure work is efficient and then just give one improvement a week just so that we're all on the same level. Not trying to show anyone up, really.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks a lot, JB. Really appreciate that. Some good advice.
Thanks for the question, Phil. Okay, so we'll go back to Tony. So Tony, do you have the question for JB?
I think you've half answered the question, to be honest, that I had. I had actually two questions, if I'm allowed. The first question was really around management of improvements. And I was wondering, did you have sort of a system where if it takes 5 minutes and it's under $20, please do it, don't talk to me? Or did everything come across the desk of the improvement manager or the person responsible?
Yeah, so at Seating Matters, we had the improvement area that people could go and use during improvement time. So in a company of 50 people, you couldn't really go and try and approve every improvement. And there was a leader in each area. But through training in the morning meeting, we were pretty confident that people do quite good 2 second improvements. So if, let's say, we were focusing on labeling for a month, everybody went and took the label maker and made labels for things. If it was a designed label, then we would have got someone to work on that with them for like a Microsoft Word label. It was spelled correctly, it was the right format, it was a lean label, things like that there. But generally speaking, we did allow people to make quick 2 second lean improvements as long as they're using materials that are in-house. We were fortunate enough to have a lot of materials in-house that we could make improvements with. If it was something that they purchased, then I went through kind of an improving process. Yeah, most people through the training and the marketing were able to produce good 2 second improvements.
My second question was for the larger improvements. How did you go about that? Because there's quite a bit of thinking that has to go in, and your team's going to have lots of ideas. Is that like a sit-down meeting with the team to really discuss through what you're going to do over time before you get there?
Yeah, definitely. If it was a big improvement that had capital expenditure, we would have talked through and had a plan, and we wouldn't have just acted straight away and say let's buy a whole lot of pallet racking. We would have planned it out.
Thanks, Tony, for your questions. Okay, and then the last one to ask is Sean.
I'm actually going to get a little bit sidetracked here because my question, I got a little bit of a laugh off James just there in our chat. And it leads into my question too. James was dying to know what you learnt teaching your dad lean. And I suppose, that older head coming from a farming background, and how did he take it, and how'd you go with that?
That's a very good question. I suppose they say it's an old dog new tricks, but if someone has the right attitude, you can teach them anything, really. Attitude is first and foremost, and my father, thankfully, has taught me a lot of humility, and he has that in bucket loads himself. So he has no problem learning from me because it's not about age, it's about humility and attitude first. So if they have that, you can really teach them anything.
Yeah, well, that's a very good response. Now, a big part of improvement nowadays is everything must be sort of videoed, show everyone what you're doing. Whereas my old head team just go, well, why should I have to go and get my phone and do this, do that, when I've got it fixed in 3 minutes? I just see a problem, I fix it, I do it, it's done. And they're going, what you're telling me to do is now going to take longer because I've got to film it, then I'm going to send it to someone. Whereas I can just do it. So how does that make the process quicker?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good question, and I've had that kind of battle myself. Sometimes taking the video is longer than the improvement. So talk about lower the activation energy, make the barrier so low, even before and after the picture. Might not show the improvement as well, but it's ticking a box and it's a little bit easier to do, saves time. I explained that the before and after video is really for us to show us where we were, so that in a year, 2 years' time, we can look back at these and see our progression, really. And that before and after picture is to inspire someone else to make an improvement, that you could then share it.
Can I also add something, Sean? If you've read the 2 Second Lean book, Paul talks about before he even had videos, he'd actually take his whole team around and go and show the area and talk about it. So the principle behind the before and after is showing people this is what the state was, this is the struggle, this is the waste, and this is how we solved it. So it's getting people to understand what is the waste so that they can identify in other areas and be able to improve it. That's the way that I understand it. In the morning meeting, whoever's hosting it should be saying, hey, look, I found this waste in my area. This is what it was like. You can take a photo or video, or if not, and it's a really good improvement, take the people to there, take a walk and go show, this is what I was doing. Let him talk about it. Let him show his passion for the improvement, and you'll see that'll spark on. It's about creating that energy of seeing that making an improvement makes your lives easier.
Oh, that's 100%, Edwin. And I'll give you a quick example, which we did have, where no video was taken, but we had some ducting on the extraction system, was always leaking or falling off. And one of the older heads, a couple of days later, just goes and whacks some duct tape on it and tapes it up. It's not falling off, it's not leaking. Yeah. And so we brought the young guys across who are young, new guys and no experience. They said, well, why didn't you just think of some sort of ideas? It's really simple. And they went, oh, because we were waiting to go to the hardware to get a 125mm diameter clamp to go on the thing. And well, here we go. We just fixed it. We don't need to recreate the wheel, or we don't need to do that. So yeah, 100% to teach others down the track. Just getting that little bit of perspective on when you have older people that just go, let's just do it. Yeah. We don't have to send our guns back to the tool shop to get them repaired if we can sit there and just clean it out ourselves and do it right there and then.
Whether people say it or not, everyone takes appreciation. It's a basic human need. When you celebrate someone's improvement, you know that before after picture or video definitely resonates with someone, and whether they put the video up themselves or not, celebrating that is a huge part.
Okay, so there's no other questions here, so we can wrap it up. So I guess the last question for you is, what can we do to improve our employees' lives?
See yourself as a coach, and improvement time as training. I think long term in that way. So if you have a coaching session today, you don't expect the result tomorrow. You know, you expect them after a long amount of time putting in that repeat work. You know, so see yourself as a coach, and you're just trying to lift everyone up with servant leadership, and try and build up your team and showcase them and make them feel like they're on top of the world. Because when you do that, the level 2 improvements start coming, and your level of service and quality of work goes up, and the culture kind of speaks for itself. So see yourself as a coach and as a servant to your people.
And I guess also the thing that comes to me being a coach is also being patient with people, because everybody learns at a different level.
One of the things when you go to Japan and then you come back here, you have waste goggles on. It's crazy. You can see waste everywhere. It's probably one of the frustrating things about lean. You know, once you start to see the waste, there's a frustration element that people talk about, and you can see waste everywhere. And when you can do that, it's like all these things coming at you at one time. But yeah, being patient. I think Paul Eckers talks about you know, chasing the hair. You know, just be patient.
Well, thank you so much, JB, for spending your morning with us and imparting some wisdom. So thank you so much, and thanks for everybody for joining.
Yeah, going well. Yeah, lots of customers, lots of problems, lots of things to figure out. So yeah, I can't complain.
That's normal, hey? That's business as usual.
Yeah, that's it. If you didn't have any problems, that would be the problem.
Like they say in Toyota, problems are your treasures, right? And
Yeah,
it's such a shift in mindset when you have that. You like realize, oh, it's actually not a problem. Problems are good. Gives you direction to fixing, making things better. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I never thought about the 3S time as coaching time. Like I always thought, okay, let's just it's about improvement, but it's actually about spending time with people to mold them, to create that culture where they start thinking like an army of problem solvers. You create an army by one person at a time almost, and then that person influences the next. It's like a virus that should spread, right? And it's, you know, it's fascinating. You got hooked by the gates being just cut, and now it makes it simpler. I had a moment as well where I was bending down. I was in the kitchen cooking, and I was bending down to open the rubbish bin, and it's right at the bottom. And I'm tall, so you know I'm bending down I'm like, why am I bending? Why am I doing this? So it was an IKEA drawer. So all I did was pulled it out, unscrewed it, put it to the top of just under the bench, not underneath something else. Moved the other drawers underneath it, and it was honestly, it's still my favorite improvement to this day, because it just, a light bulb went on. I'm like, all my life I've been living with it because it's fixed there. You don't think it can move. So it's fixed. Once I moved it, everything, the whole world is like, I can move the world around now because it doesn't, I don't have to deal with the struggle. And that is so powerful. And I think if people that switch on to 2-second lean is because they have that moment. They have that aha, like, oh, wow. And you had that moment. That's why you hooked.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's right, like a light switch. It's crazy.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching up to this point. And because you did, I've got 2 clips that I'm going to share with you. One is from Ryan and another one from Paul, talking about this topic of making improving easier. Now, a couple of months ago, I was going through the 3 pillars of lean. The first being see waste, and then everybody's got to improve everything everywhere. And then you got to share that improvement. Now, if you're asking yourself, why are my team not improving as much? Why am I not getting improvements coming through? Well, there's only a number of reasons. The first one, obviously, is step 1. It's the leadership. You know, there's a leadership issue there. If you've got a leadership issue, you probably got your culture issue there. And if those are okay, and that's getting right, then you've probably got a teaching and training issue. But now, let's say, hey, I've got a team and they are seeing the waste. You're training in the morning meeting, the learning clubs, and the 3S time. They're seeing the waste, but they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, I don't know how to make this improvement. I don't have any ideas. Or I don't have the skill. So what do you do in that instance? So that's what I asked Ryan. So let's hear what Ryan says about that.
Hey, Edwin. How's it going? Yep, that's a great question, and I think I do have an answer for you. So if you notice how my book talks about the improvement manager, and that is something that I think most 2-second lean companies are missing, the improvement manager. So there's this idea that everybody's expected to go and do all these improvements, but the fact is that our sewing machinists don't know how to make a piece of, they don't know how to make a shelf out of a piece of wood, or they don't know how to make a bracket to hook up their brush, or they don't know how. And because they don't know how, they just stop and they don't do anything. So that's why an improvement manager doesn't have to be a full-time person, but somebody that can support with actually physically doing the improvements. It's like such a massive thing, it should almost be a book on its own, or a podcast, or a video on its own, because it's a step that most people miss. And they wonder why they can't get engagement, and they wonder why there's all these, let's be honest, silly improvements done. Because people think they're doing the right thing, but they really don't have the skills to make what's needed, or to get the causes, what there is. So that is my answer. An improvement manager is the key to building a lean culture. Or in a smaller company that can't justify a full-time person doing that, it should be part of somebody else's role, that they are there to support people with improvements. Because all we really want, if we simplify this whole thing, all we really want is the idea, the suggestion. We want to know what bugs people. Then we can send a team in to help them and support them to do it. Because if you go to a Toyota facility, not sure if you've ever been to a Toyota factory or not, but the guys on the line aren't actually doing improvements. Like, they're making dashboards, they're putting the seats in the car, they're on a tack time. They can't go off and make some random jig or go and label their tools. But they do have a system where they get the suggestions and the ideas, and then the Kaizen team will come in and support them. So that's what we have on a smaller scale. All we really need is the ideas. We need to see what's bugging people. And yes, we have lots of people now that actually can do improvements, but there's still loads that can't. And that's where Paul, our improvement manager, comes in.
So it's really important here. Ryan's talking about improvement manager to support these guys who see the waste. You want to capture those ideas from the people. Once you got that, then you need a system to be able to create and develop those ideas and practice and then put them into practice. Paul's got a slightly different point of view. This is what he says.
So Edwin, therein lies the problem. People have so minimal skills these days. It's staggering. They don't know how to do anything. So you've got to either hire someone who has some rudimentary skills that they can pull things off, or you need to train them to be able to do it. That's what we did. We basically created little tiny workstations with all the tools, and we just slowly but surely trained them. One of the words that you'll learn in Japan with me is monozukuri. Monozukuri is a Japanese word for the ability to make things. And in Japan, they make everything. They have factories from one end to the other end. The Japanese don't farm out everything. They know how to make things. And the problem with our cultures around the world is we farm everything out. Nobody knows how to make anything anymore. There are very few people that have the skill to actually, take a hot glue gun and put something together. And I'm being very extreme here to make a point. And this is the issue. We must teach people the importance of being able to use their hands and create things and solve problems, and not always farm it out to somebody else.
Great. So Paul says that you got to teach and train your people. So you got to hire actually people with a skill that you're looking for. You got to hire really well. If you hire well and you develop and you train them to look for the waste and then improve it themselves, you can actually get the results that you're looking for. So I hope those 2 clips helped. Thank you so much for watching again, and we'll see you at the next Learning Club.